Hey, Mitch.
Oh, hey, Ed.
Hey, have you lost some weight?
No, why?
Doesn't matter. Anyway, guess what's coming up? It's time for the top 10 scary Halloween movies.
Oh, that's great. Can I bring some friends?
Sure. Hi, this is Ed Dollister.
And this is Mitch Halleck.
And welcome to Mitch and Ed's Excellent Adventure. Before we begin with today's spooky topic, a big thank you to everyone who's been watching the show, especially our 70s superhero showdown, Marvel versus DC. That was our biggest show yet. So thank you so much to everyone who's watched and also to everyone who has subscribed. We've got a bunch of new subscribers as well. If you're watching the show for the first time and haven't subscribed, please do so. Subscribe. Make sure you hit the bell so you get notified when we have a new show. We have a new show every 2 weeks. Mitch, you're looking suitably spooky for Halloween. Obviously,
well, I thought I'd get in this. I thought I'd get in the spirit of the holiday here in the States. Now, do they celebrate Halloween in Australia, Ed?
Well, that's what I was just going to say. They've been trying to get in on it. I've got to say, for a long time, mainly the department stores and supermarkets trying to sell Halloween lollies, or as you call it, candy. I just picked up a Halloween bucket yesterday, and I've got to say, we do see over the past maybe 10 years, it's been growing here in Australia. And we do see, I do see a couple of, bunches of kids dressing up, trying to trick or treat, but it's not really a really big thing here in Australia, though they are trying to push it. I know in America, it is huge business.
Well, I got to admit, when I was a kid, it was just we would get a sheet and put it over yourself and cut some holes. You'd be a ghost, or maybe you bought a store-bought costume. They had a company called Ben Cooper.
Yes.
And their costumes were like $1.99, and you'd get them at the local 5 and dime store. And they had everybody. They had Spider-Man and Superman and Batman and
Flash
Mickey Mouse.
Gordon. There was the Star Wars characters I remember seeing.
Yeah. That was the stuff of legend. It's like if it was Halloween, it was time for a Ben Cooper costume. And they always had these cheesy plastic masks with this elastic band that would always snap off and whip you in the air or something. And then you never can get it to work again. It was crazy. But
well, I remember being when we were in New York in a few years ago now, we went to a giant, it was is it Ruby's?
Yeah, Ruby's. Yeah, Ruby's costumes. Yep.
We went to a giant Ruby's costume shop, and oh my gosh. I mean, being a theater person, I just love costumes and prop, and some of the setups were absolutely amazing.
Oh yeah, people go all out. Like I said, Halloween was around, but it really kicked in, I'm going to say maybe in the 90s and the 2000s with the decorations, and we always carved up pumpkins and stuff. That was a tradition, but there's literally down the street from me, there's a 15-foot skeleton you could buy, and it's in someone's front yard. People go out of the control decorating their houses here. It's like Christmas almost.
Well, I know that we saw some, yard decorations actually at our local Woolies supermarket. Star Wars yard decorations of they're just like cardboard cutouts of Darth Vader and the stormtroopers, but you can see their skeletons inside. So everyone's on the Halloween bandwagon. So why shouldn't Mitch and Ed's Excellent Adventure get on there as well?
Yeah, why not? I mean, it's not every day I look like this. This, by the way, for the viewers, is how I normally look without the stage makeup on. So
that's right. I'm glad you got out of the glass little dome that you usually sit in on the mantelpiece, which is fantastic. Sharon's let you out for the day, which is great. Bit of fresh air.
If they don't have trick-or-treating like they do here, though, you do have scary movies, though, right?
We do. And it's funny. I've never been I don't really know the appeal of, Like I like a good suspense, and I suppose like I quite like supernatural horror movies,
Yeah, yeah.
to a degree. But I've never understood why people like the slasher movie.
No, I'm not a fan of that. No, any of that bloody stuff where they're chopping heads off and things. No, I don't got that. Like, I'm more of a monster guy,
Yeah.
like a
So
swamp monster or vampire type of thing. So those
yeah,
really,
and certainly they've evolved over time. And I mean, I went through my phase. I remember in the 19, it would have been late 80s, probably, where we had a bunch of high school friends. We'd go over for a sleepover. We watch we'd rent. I remember we rented all five. It was probably at that point all 5 or 6 of the Friday the 13th
mm,
movies.
mm.
And after the second one, I think we just realized, oh my gosh, it's the same movie.
It is the same movie.
Same movie.
I gotta
And
be
the
honest.
only,
Here's a confession.
yeah.
I've never seen any of those movies. I know of them. I know the stories. I've never sat through a Freddy Krueger movie, Friday the 13th, Halloween. I've never seen, I know all the stories. I know what happens.
Yep.
I just never watched them. I don't really care, but I do have a list of movies that are scary though. So
Yeah,
if
well,
you're
that's good. I've got my a top 5 as well. I was just going to
all
say
right,
in the only thing out of Friday the 13th, there must have been maybe part 4 that I got any excitement out of was that Fedora was in it from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, playing one
oh,
of the
I know him.
dads. Yeah, and
Yeah,
I'm going, hey, that's the guy, and
Richard Young.
yeah, it was Richard Young, and none of my friends go, and that was the most exciting thing. But
Well, I
anyway,
thought you were like, wasn't Johnny Depp's first movie in one of
night
those?
it was Nightmare on Elm Street,
There you go.
his very first movie. So they have started some careers, but we're going to be looking at out now. This is our list, of course. It's not a
Yes,
definitive list by any means. I'm sticking mainly to the 70s and 80s. So
pretty much. Yeah, that's what I got.
would you, as a floating head, I know that probably takes a lot of exertion. I'm just levitating there. So would you like to
Well, I
go
wish I
first?
had if I had my legs, I'd kick it off, but I could do the next best thing. So you want me to start up?
Float on.
Okay. The Night Stalker, Darren McGavin. Now, this was a movie that I saw as a kid, and I was born in 1966. This came out in 1972. I remember this. I remember because I think my older sisters, they're like 7 or 8 years older than me, Debbie and Kim, they watched this. This was a TV movie, and it was about a reporter named Carl Kolchak, played by Darren McGavin, who stumbles across a real live vampire living in Australia, living in, that would be something. No, it was in Las Vegas. So no one believed him because it was set in like a real world situation, and there was a real live vampire going around killing showgirls and such. And Darren McGavin is great in this movie. He plays like a down and out, reporter. He wants to go back to the big city and be, make a name for himself, but he's working for this really low rent rag newspaper. No one reads it, but it was a great movie, suspenseful. And the funny thing is, it was a TV movie, wasn't a theatrical film. It was the highest rated TV movie for its time. 52% of the country tuned in to watch Darren McGavin kill a vampire in Las Vegas. That's a lot of people back in the day.
That is, and it's interesting because I haven't been able to find these. I think they did they do 2 telemovies?
They did 2 movies. The first one's called The Night Stalker, and then the sequel's called The Night Strangler, that has Richard Anderson from Oscar
That's right,
Goldman
yes.
fame as the bad guy, and that one takes place in Seattle. And then after that, they launched the TV series. Unfortunately, it only lasted about 22 episodes. It was a ratings bomb. Let's just put it that way.
Well,
It
it's
didn't
funny
work.
because given that the telemovie was such a huge success.
Well, the problem is it was hard to come up with a monster every week. They didn't have those serialized storytelling like the X-Files did. So they would have a monster of the week. And they didn't have the greatest budget either. So some weeks he would have a really cool looking monster, and then there's a guy basically the worst one was he fought a giant reptile, and you could see the zipper on the dragon's costume.
Was
And
that the one where people saw like someone they knew and then it attacked them?
No, that's the Rakshasa. That's a great one. That's called Terror in the Heights or something like that. And there was this Indian or a Hindu demon, and it would take the form of anybody or whoever you trusted the most. and it would go up to folks, and it kind of looked like that salt vampire from Star Trek when they finally showed it, and it would rip you to shreds. It was a great episode. And
I
you know
love
who
that. It
got
was
their start on that show?
who?
Robert Zemeckis from Back to the
That's right,
Future
and Bob
fame.
Gale, because I
And
think we
Bob Gale,
mentioned that they wrote that motorcycle episode, didn't they?
Chopper, yeah, the headless motorcycle one.
Yeah.
And the other thing is one of the showrunners or whatever, the head writer is another guy named David Chase, who went on to create the Sopranos TV show.
Yep.
And he started on that show as well. So I mean, it might have done great numbers and successful, but it launched a lot of careers, and it's really a cool show if you get to see it.
Oh yeah, and it's a like it's got a cult following. What I liked about Kolchak is Carl Kolchak he was such a fearless. He'd throw himself into it. Like he's not an action hero, but he would go into dark places that and to discover the truth. And I love that show. There was I know they brought a comic book out.
There's still comic books out
Yep.
there. Yeah. And the fact, one of the funny thing is, I remember in 1973 or 4, that was my Halloween costume. I'll have to find a picture. I borrowed my uncle's hat and my dad's sports jacket, and I had a camera and my sister's tape recorder, and I ran around the neighborhood saying I was Carl Kolchak, and I had a cross and a stake, but everybody thought I was dressed like a hobo. It was kind of sad. They're like, "Oh, look, are you supposed to be a hobo?" I'm like, "I'm the Night Stalker." No one knew what the hell that was. They're like, "You're the who now?" I go, "The Night Stalker, Darren McGavin." They go,
"You're cosplaying before your time."
Whatever you do, don't ever watch the 2008 relaunch of the show that starred. He was
in
Charlize Theron's. What's that?
Yes, he was in League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Extraordinary Gentlemen. Yeah.
Townsend.
Yeah. Townsend.
Stuart Townsend.
Yes. He was a longtime boyfriend of Charlize Theron, but that remake is horrible. It's done by the guy that worked on the X-Files called Frank Sponitz. It's just, it's not even worth looking at the credits. It's such a bad, it has nothing to do with the original TV series or movie. They have the names are the same, but that's about it.
Yeah.
It's a terrible remake. So watch the original.
All right. Well, I'm still in the 70s. I'm in 1976. And one of my favorite movies of that time is The Omen, directed by Richard Donner, starring Gregory Peck. It is creepy, spooky, not overly gory, but it has an amazing score by Jerry Goldsmith that was won the Academy Award, I believe, for the score. And from that was the score from then on, which had the like the Gregorian chanting sort of style music, which from then on, there's movies that have a certain score and movies after that follow it. Like Conan the Barbarian had a great from Basil Polidorus had a great score, and then Barbarian movies followed that suit. The same with The Omen. It was great performances. It took itself seriously, and it was one of those that had a sense of dread throughout the whole film. And I will have a honorable mention. I've got honorable mentions, but this is sort of also The Omen 2, which not as good as it sort of ramped up the gore a little bit. But we're called Damien, The Omen 2. So when Damien was a school child, that creepy school child with the, the number of the beast tattooed on his forehead. Oh, hang on, my saw is popping out of my head. I really enjoyed that. So a great film. There was 3 films, well, technically 4 films in the series. The third one starred Sam Neill from I think it was 1980.
Damnation. Wasn't the last one called that? The
third
one?
There was Omen 4, The Awakening.
And the final conflict, I thought
that was the third one. Yes,
that's with Sam Neill, right?
Yeah, where he's a business person. Very early.
Yeah, I like that one. That because the good Catholic boy in me liked it because at the end the angels came and kicked his ass.
Well, it was about time because he kept winning, and again, I like to. As I said, I'm not a big horror movie fan because usually at the end, there's always you want a bit of hope. I mean, this world needs a bit of hope. I think so.
Especially now.
That's true. That's true.
My eyebrow really likes that. It keeps moving.
Yeah, it does. So that's my first one. What's next for you?
Well, I was going to go for a movie starring Tim Hutton or Jim Hutton, Timothy Hutton's dad. And King Darby. and it's called Don't Be Afraid of the Dark. Again, this was another TV movie from the 70s. And let me tell you something. This movie scared the bejesus out of me, my sisters, the whole family. And this is what I mean by a good suspenseful horror movie.
Yeah.
You don't really see anything because this family buys this house, they're renovating it, and they open up the chimney, and then they have these little things start to disappear around the house. Well, it turns out to be there's these little gremlin guys next to me over here, and they're there, and they only come out at night, and they're after Kim Darby's character. Her name is Sally, and they just keep stalking her, and she's telling everybody that there's these things in the house. And like I said, her husband's played by Jim Hutton, the actor. He played Ellery Queen, if you ever saw that. He was in some movies. He died very young, in his like 40s. And again, he's the father of actor Timothy Hutton, but he doesn't believe her. And then there's an actor in there who played Uncle Charlie from My Three Sons, William Demers, I think his name was. He knows about this. Of course, he's not telling the family about these demons in their basement. So at the end of the movie, they drug her. They lock, the little creatures do. They drug her. They lock all the doors, and they drag her down the stairs into, I'm ruining the movie, spoiler alert for a 50-year-old movie. They drag her into the chimney and eventually into the basement. And that's it. And they never find his wife, and he's looking for her. And she's like, oh, eventually they'll find me. But the thing is, these little creatures, you never see them much. And she grabs a flash camera and she takes a picture of it with the flash, and you see it very quickly. You see these little gremlin guys run off into the corner. And that's really the only time you see them in the whole movie. So your imagination really fills in the blanks. And they would call to her at night, and they would go, Sally, we want you, Sally. And that's all you would hear. You wouldn't see anything. You would just hear the sound of these little voices calling at you. And it was, they were under the bed like mice. They would move around under the sheets and stuff. And they'd start pulling her blankets off and try to get her. And they just go, Sally. And we would scare the hell out of each other in my house. We would turn the lights off, and my sister would go, bitch, we want you. And I'd be crying like a baby, like, Ma. So Don't Be Afraid of the Dark. There was a remake. I think it's Guillermo del Toro did a remake. Or no, it was the Lord of the Rings guy, I think maybe.
Peter Jackson.
I think Peter Jackson did a remake of it a couple years ago. It's not as good as the original. None of these are ever as good as the original.
Yeah.
Go see the original. Don't Be Afraid of the Dark. No blood in it. No ghoulish. No head slacks cutting off or any of that stuff. It's just a scary, scary movie. So Don't Be Afraid of the Dark. 1973, I think it was. That was a good time for TV movies because they were making things for free. You'd come home and turn your TV, and
that's right.
It was a horror movie. Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna go from something that's not gory to something that's pretty gory, only because I just remember renting this on video in the 80s when I saw this, and I just really really enjoyed it. And it was 1978's Dawn of the Dead. And I don't mind. I'm not a big zombie fan. Like I watched the first season of The Walking Dead. Like that first episode of The Walking Dead is a cracker of an episode, but after that, I sort of wasn't that interested.
Yeah.
And I don't mind a little bit of a zombie movie, but this movie, it was predominantly set in a mall, which is a trope that they use in like Stranger Things now, and things like that. And the gore effects were so over the top and ridiculous, and the blood was so bright red, and everything like that. It was pretty amazing. Tom Savini did the special effects makeup. George A. Romero, he obviously did Night of the Living Dead, which was in the 60s. But this one, I just thought was great. It's about hunkering down in a shopping mall, and they're being attacked by zombies on all sides. I haven't watched it for quite a while, so I'm sure the gore effects probably look a little cheesy, which is probably a good thing, because I don't like these gore effects that look hyper realistic. So
did you see the first one, the black and white one?
I did, and it wasn't very for me, it was a bit too, I know it was groundbreaking at the time, but I prefer, we were just talking about it before,
cheesy.
Plan 9 from Outer Space. That's a bit more fun.
Well, the next one we could skip really quick because I also picked the Omen.
Ah,
because look, The Exorcist was too scary. Okay,
yeah.
going to Catholic school, they told us not to see that movie. But The Omen, something about possessed little kids, they're creepy, man.
Mm.
And he's on that bike riding down that hallway, and he knocks the housekeeper off the staircase, and she falls to her death. Or is she the one that hangs herself? All for you, Damien, at his birthday party, and she like jumps off the roof and hangs herself.
It's
That's
pretty. Yeah,
that movie.
that's
Huh?
that's pretty. It's pretty terrible. Well, there's the, or is it in the Omen 2 with the glass in the glass shards where she falls
Oh
through
yeah.
Patrick, oh, he was Doctor
Patrick
Who.
McNee.
Was it
Patrick McGowan?
No, not neither of those. Not Patrick McNee or McGowan, but it was he played
We're running out of Patricks.
He was Doctor Who, Patrick Troughton.
Oh, he's in the. Oh, that's right. He's the priest, right?
The priest. And remember, in the photo, they had the photo, and the photo it looked like there was this thing through him on the photo, and it ended up being
circles around his head. Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, you're right.
But we forgot to mention it while we're talking about Richard Donner made this.
Yeah.
Before he gets to do Superman.
Yeah. Well, that's part of the reason that he got the Superman gig. Was the success of this?
It was low budget. I think he was also a TV movie veteran. And they hired him because he knew how to get a movie done quickly and cheaply, and it made big bucks. So
it did.
So I won't beat a dead horse or a dead demonic child. But okay, so The Omen was on my pick. So
say that.
What's the next one?
I'm moving to still staying in 1978. So that's when Dawn of the Dead was out. I don't know if you could really I call it a horror film. It's Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Obviously, they got to you, Mitch. Your body has been snatched. With Donald Sutherland, Leonard Nimoy. It has just got a great
Jeff Goldblum.
Yes. It's got a great sense of dread in it. Directed by Philip Kaufman, who did The Right Stuff.
And Raiders Lost Ark,
of course.
Co-writer.
Yes, and it is a great. Sorry, it looks like you're in a Christmas tree there, Mitch.
It's candles, Ed. It's atmospheric.
That's good.
Who's the girl in that? Is that Brooke Adams in that movie?
Yes, Brooke Adams and.
No, I'm just saying because there was a lot of actresses that all looked the same, like Deborah Winger, Karen Allen, Brooke Adams, and what's the Amy Irving? There was a certain look to these actresses at the time, and it's like they're almost interchangeable. You're like, oh, isn't that? Oh no, it's the other one. Okay.
But that was a great. That was a really good movie with great suspense.
Did you see that in the theaters?
No, I think wouldn't have been allowed in at 8. I think I first saw that probably on video. TV. And
I remember being a fan of the original one with Kevin McCarthy. That was always a good scary one. But this one was totally freaking me out at the end when Donald Sutherland just opens his mouth and points and goes,
Yeah. It was because again, that was one that was bleak. It didn't really have any hope. And I thought it was quite realistic as well. It showed what could happen, and the effects, the effect of the there was the hobo with the dog with the hobo's face. And really, really good. So that's my number 3. What about you?
My number 4 is going to be a TV movie once again, Salem's Lot, starring Hutch himself, David Soul, and it make Stephen King, based on a Stephen King story. It's about a haunted town and a haunted house up in Maine. Everything's always in Maine in here in New England. And David Soul becomes a vampire hunter. And Lance Kerwin, I don't know whatever happened to Lance Kerwin, but he was like this young teenage actor. He was like in all these TV movies and such. And what happened is they go up to Maine. Salem's Lot is a section of Maine. And it turns out to be the entire town is being infested with vampires. Now, the reason why this was so scary, it's not because it's just a vampire, and it had actor James Mason, who was an old-time Hollywood actor in it, but there's one scene in Salem's Lot that scared the hell out of me. This boy dies, this young boy dies, maybe like 12, 13 years old, and he becomes a vampire. And his friend is sleeping. Well, at night, outside his bedroom window,
that's right,
the dead boy comes up and he's tapping on the glass, and he comes in and he's a bloodsucker, he's a vampire. But the fact that he's just this dead kid floating outside your window, knocking on your window, I tell you, it was a 2-part TV movie, and that's how part 1 ended. I was freaking out. It was 1979, and I was like, oh my God, that's one of the scariest things I ever saw. To this day, I could close my eyes and see that dead kid's body floating outside the window, tapping on the glass. So yeah, it was something else. They did a second movie, Return to Salem's Lot, years later. It wasn't very good. And I think there's a remake, or they did a remake of it, but it was one of those things that for its time, it was scary. It was on TV. It was something else though. So Salem's Lot is one of my spookiest movies ever.
Oh, good. Well, I'm moving into the early 80s now with my second last choice. And this one is, I don't know if it's, well, I think it's a horror film. It's The Thing with Kurt Russell, directed by John Carpenter, makeup effects by Rob Bottin or Bottin, depends how you, And I remember seeing this and going, what? It was again scary. It had little elements of humor, but it was a pretty dark film, and the makeup
it was effects, dark. It was pretty horrific.
The makeup effects were phenomenal, and I have got some. Again, it's somewhere in storage. I'll find it as soon as we stop recording.
Yeah, always away.
I'll find it. A Cinema Fantastique magazine that covers The Thing, and it shows
the making of it.
Yeah, and it shows how they did all the. I think it's got that, and is it Krull in it? Krull was 83.
It was around the same time. I remember going to see. I saw The Thing in the movie theaters. I don't know why, because I'm not a horror guy, and I think it was on a double bill with Dr. Detroit, the Dan Aykroyd movie. So I saw Dr. Detroit, and then you get to see a second feature, and it was The Thing. Oh my God, when that. Remember, there's the big guy, and they go to do the
autopsy. Is that where they try and recharge him, and the defibrillators go.
They started with the CPR, and his chest caves in and chops the guy's arms off.
Yeah,
and then the thing rises up out of his torso, and then his head comes off and crawls away like a spider. Yeah. Oh my God, that was so friggin' gross. I was just like throwing up in my seat, going, "Oh."
It looked great. The practical effects that they used, the sound effects, everything like that. It was great. It still holds up today. I know they did a remake not too long ago, a couple of years ago, which doesn't hold a candle to it, but
no.
Or a flamethrower to it, in that fact. It's a great science fiction film and a great horror film, and I think it's one of those rare movies where the remake is better than the original. I think, like Invasion of the Body Snatchers. I think that's a superior, remake, and I feel like The Thing.
Well, that movie is a remake of a 1950s movie. So you think they remade it a third time?
Well, hang on, what are you saying?
Well, no, The Thing is a remake.
Yeah, so The Thing, there was The Thing from Another World, and it was originally, and it was also closely now what's the name of the original book? Don't go here, or I'll put
the author of the book. It's a famous author. It's not Ray Bradbury.
No, but
is it now you're gonna kill me because I can't remember it too.
Yeah,
it'll come up on our subtitles underneath.
Well, I'll put it up. I'll put
good
it
old subtitles.
Thank goodness. Yes.
My last movie.
Yep, go for it.
is another TV movie.
Oh my
I
gosh.
never had to leave the theater.
Did you get the memo? We were talking about, okay, no, that's okay.
Yeah. But this was worthy of it. This was one, again, it's always about devils and demons. I went to too many Catholic schools. Gargoyles. Do you know what Gargoyles is?
I know that. I remember the TV show with half the Star Trek cast.
This has nothing to do with the cartoon.
Yeah.
This is a 1972 TV movie about this father who goes out to the desert. He's an archaeologist, and his daughter, and they discover the skeletal remains of some creature, which they can't identify because it's got like a wingspan and a horned head. They're like, well, what the hell was this? And it starts off with this like introduction, this little exposition about there have always been gargoyles. And they show like throughout history, like you go to France and on all the buildings, there's gargoyle statues. And then the Bible's full of demonic stories. And you see these evil creatures. Now, here's one of the little facts for you. Stan Winston, first makeup job is on this TV movie Gargoyles. And he goes on to win an Emmy Award for best special makeup effects. But Bernie Casey, do you remember the actor Bernie Casey?
The name's familiar.
He was in James Bond. He played Felix Leiter. Remember the big Afro-American actor, Bernie Casey? Yeah. He's the gargoyle. And the gargoyles have woken up and they're coming back and they need to reproduce. And they have eggs. They have like a whole cave full of eggs, and the eggs are hatching. There's like baby gargoyles in it. And of course, what do they want? They want to steal the archaeologist's daughter, Maria. That's what they always want.
Yeah.
To breed, he needs a queen. So he needed to get a woman to be the host and, impregnate her with the race of new gargoyle demons, because eventually they were going to take over the world. And who's in this movie in his very first picture? Scott Glenn is as a motorcycle guy who shows up to save everybody. It's a crazy 90-minute movie. It's on YouTube.
Yeah.
A lot of these movies are on YouTube. I think Salem's Lot's on there, and the Night Stalker I know is, but Gargoyles was just crazy scary. Crazy. Look at this guy.
Oh no, he's got two heads.
But anyway, that was my.
There's your Stan Winston effects there. That was fantastic.
Another one where one of these things where it's again attacking this woman as she's sleeping, and the little demon character, the gargoyle, is at the end of her bed, and she wakes up and it's looking at her. What is up with like waking up people in the middle of the night and scaring them? I'm like, stop that. Okay. It's not real, but it's scary. Look at that.
That's good. Well, my last one on the list is a classic from 1982. 1982 was a pretty good year for, spooky sort of ghost stories. And I'm looking at Poltergeist, directed by Tobe Hooper, or really directed by Steven Spielberg, I believe. And it's a classic film. Family move to a new house. Of course, it's on an ancient burial ground. Of course, they only remove the headstones. So, some great visual effects, some good jump scares. It's scary, but not too scary. And I'm going to say,
it was PG actually.
Really?
Here it was. Yeah. It wasn't rated R.
Okay. I just remember, I just remember being pretty scared by that. But I actually also like, and it's probably not popular to like it, is Poltergeist 2, The Other Side.
Ooh, yeah, no.
So only because, they brought the Freeling family back, and they had the preacher in it.
That old guy. You're all gonna die.
Yeah, that freaked me out. And his makeup and the way he looked.
I don't think that was his makeup. I think that guy was, I heard he was dying of cancer at the time.
Yeah.
And that's his emaciated look was real. I don't think they did a lot of makeup on him.
Yep. That he freaked me out. God is in his holy temple. I can still see it now with his cult that, and he was brought. So I quite enjoyed that, but really Poltergeist, it's got that Spielberg flair to it. It's got that, sort
Did
of
the clown scare you, or the tree outside the window?
the tree. I liked when she fell in. I mean, when she fell into the swimming pool and there were all the
Oh, the
bodies
dead
there, which
bodies were
reminded me
popping
of
up.
Raiders of the Lost Ark with Marion.
Okay.
So Poltergeist, it's a good fun Spielbergian sort of horror
I
film.
forgot to mention that Toby Hooper was actually the director of Salem's Lot, the
Oh, there you
TV movie I
go.
mentioned. Yeah, so I'm beginning to wonder. I know he did Texas Chainsaw Massacre at one
Yes,
point. I'm wondering if that happened before or after. I don't know.
I think that was earlier than that. I'll put it
79.
up. I'll put it up
Okay.
right now. When
All right, 79 was Salem's Lot, so
yeah.
I'm assuming Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Was that
Again,
like
I
70?
never saw. I
Was that
know
like
of it. I don't
74
like
or
the
76?
horror behind that. So
Yeah.
I think all the movies we picked were pretty spooky. There was not a lot of slasher
No,
films. None
I
of that.
mean, there was no, I don't think there was. I mean,
No.
Dawn of the Dead zombie movie or Day of the
Yeah,
Dead,
yeah, but still.
afterwards. But yeah, that's just our opinion. Do you have any honorable mentions? I've got a few.
Honorable mentions for horror movies that scared me. No, not really. I mean, these are TV movies. These are ones I saw as a kid and they burned themselves into my brain. So I never forgot them. So maybe it's because those were the first things that scared me that
Yeah.
just made me naturally. I don't know. I don't really see any movies nowadays that make me jump out of my seat or any of that type of stuff. There's
Yep.
reality is much frightening, much more frightening than the movies.
It is,
But
sadly.
what movies do you have on
So
your?
I've got a few, and I'll just go through them really quickly. One is Jaws, because I do feel like that's a bit of a horror, film.
Mhm.
Alien, Ridley Scott, 1979.
The first one, yeah,
Yep.
that's like a horror haunted house. Yeah,
I'm gonna say American Werewolf in London.
really.
I remember I saw it later on, and that
Mhm.
scene with the Nazi dogs bursting in.
Oh yeah,
That terrified me. The whole, and those makeup effects.
where they're ripping the throats out and stuff.
Oh my gosh. The makeup is totally amazing. And now I'll see if I've got a feeling that's the first film to win
Yeah, a special
makeup effects.
Yeah,
And right,
they made that category after that movie because they're like they got to give this guy something for coming up with that.
yes, so that was pretty good. I'm going to put in there E.T. I know it's not a scary film.
No, it's not.
Wait,
you can't put E.T. on the.
Hang on. Here's my
You can. If you're afraid of ET, you got to go.
Here's my ET. Ouch. So I'm only putting ET in because it's a Halloween movie. Okay. It's set during.
All right. It is a Halloween movie.
It's set during Halloween. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm putting it in as a Halloween movie. All right. That's
well,
it.
If you put that in as a Halloween movie, then I guess I could put Batman Forever with Val Kilmer because that takes place at Halloween.
Well, anyway, let's so Twilight Zone the movie has some scary moments in it. That's
with the John Lithgow one, the remake.
I think
that was a scary one too. I'll tell you, the Twilight Zone with William Shatner, that freaked me out with the gremlin, even though the costume was hideous. When he pulls that curtain back and the gremlin thing is pressed up against the window looking at him, oh my God, I remember freaking out in my house with that one.
I just love how they used these eyes that would inflate. George Miller directed that sequence, from Mad Max fame. And they used it just as a sort of a quick cut, but they inflated his eyes to make him look like he's really, which is great. I would put in there, and again, not Halloween movie, a little scary, is Gremlins. Fun, scary, but that's more of a Christmassy.
Well, I would put in Fright Night then.
Yeah.
With Roddy McDowell and Michael Nuria. I think Michael Nuria. That's how you say his name? No, actually, he lives right. Oh, it's Chris Sarandon. Sarandon, who lives in the town over from me. Sorry.
Go.
Yeah.
Well, then what about Monster Squad? Monster Squad?
The movie Monster Squad?
Yeah.
Wolfman's Got Nads? Or no? Come on. If we're gonna go scary, I'll tell you the scariest movie I saw, Silence of the Lambs.
Okay.
When that movie ended, I opened the exit door and it was a foggy night and I couldn't see my car. And I'm walking to it and there was nobody else in the theater but me and this other guy. and I'm like, oh my God, it's one of the serial killers. He's going to kill me. So I remember seeing that.
Well, and my last one is a movie called Spellbinder from 1988. It starred Tim Daly and Kelly Preston, and
Really?
she had this. I just remember watching it one night on TV. You know, they've got this idea. You think it's sort of like a romance movie. You find out she's part of a cult. They've got a beautiful marriage and everything like that. And at the end, she ends up sacrificing him. It just came out of nowhere. And I thought, oh my God, they were in how could she, and he didn't, and it just freaked me out. So that was Spellbinder.
Well, there's another, if we're going to go down this road.
Okay.
Vincent Price, The House on Haunted Hill.
Yes.
It's cheesy as anything. There's like dead bodies being thrown in acid and being burned alive. And at the end, this skeleton comes out of the acid vat and goes after somebody. But you can see the wires and everything, but it was just creepy as all hell.
Was Jeffrey Rudd? Did they do a remake of that with Jeffrey Rush?
They do a remake of all these things. Yeah.
So I guess so that's it. That's our look at some scary movies. Hopefully there was some on the list that you might not have. I can guarantee you there was some on the list that you probably didn't think of. So maybe you'll give it a go, give them a bit of a watch. It doesn't have to be Halloween to watch these. I think you'll enjoy them.
My Floating Head could be one of the scariest.
I think it could. And if you've got some suggestions, if you agree or disagree with us, please comment in the comment section. It was really great to see your comments on the Superhero Showdown. There was some great comments there as well. So
we got a bunch of new subscribers too, Ed.
Yeah, which is fantastic.
Don't forget to subscribe.
Subscribe, please do. Mitch, well, I hope you'll be back next week with
I hope the rest of
your body. It's probably wandering around. Is that what I can hear bumping into the furniture upstairs?
Yeah, somewhere. I think maybe my wife has taken it out. She just can't stand my head anymore. She just took the rest of the body.
Well, at least you know you don't talk back as much, which is kind of nice.
Oh, she must love that part of it.
All right. Well, that's our look at some of our favorite spooky Halloween movies. Thanks for watching. As always, this is Ed Dollister.
And this is Mitch Halleck's Head.
And we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.